There were originally 4 planned hotels.
4 planned hotels. They
Mhm.
ended
Only
up
one
with
got
one,
built.
the
Yep.
Mirasol. So today I have Frank and Lindsey Carrera. Is that how you spell your last name?
Carriera.
Carriera. Carrera. I'm thinking marble. Carrera Marble. Welcome to the show, guys. Appreciate you being
Thanks for
here.
having
Thank
us.
you for having us.
And so you guys live on Davis Islands. You've lived there for over a decade, and you've found yourself with the awesome opportunity to own this amazing historic property, the Mirasol, which turns 100 next year.
Correct.
And so what's the origin story here? Frank, you were telling me you're a real estate broker,
Mm-hmm.
and you actually had this property listed.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? You and your wife talked about how this would be an amazing idea to restore the property?
How was
Yeah,
it?
so we had, I'll just take you back real quick. So we had, I've had probably over a decade history with the building, having represented a couple of owners. My background is multifamily investment sales, and that's still my primary business. And we had the opportunity where one of my clients who I sold it to the last time went to go sell it, and we asked him, hey, would you be open to selling it to us? And he, we I was we had done a lot of business together, and his exact words were, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for you, Frank. So if you really think you can buy the building and close, and we'll make it happen. So we made it happen. And so this long history of representing owners of the building and then living on Davis Island ended up an opportunity for us to buy it, and we jumped on it.
It's amazing. And Lindsey, what's your sort of reaction when this opportunity came about? Because you seem very, in love with the history and the building and the design and all that.
I am. The first time I went into the building, I was just like floored. And that's typically the reaction that people have even today. He had worked on it so many times. We had been there during one of the owners and, had wine with them. It's just a very enchanting place. So I was excited. I
Yeah.
was excited to wrap my arms around it. Yeah.
And when I walked in the lobby, I probably was in there maybe when I was a kid or something like that, but I hadn't, been as long as I could remember. And you're right, when you walk in, the first thing I noticed was the Pecky cypress ceiling. Like, I don't even know if you can buy authentic Pecky cypress now. Pecky cypress is created by, I think, worms that infect cypress trees and create those knots and grooves.
That's
It's
right.
it's
Yeah.
like an old school Florida building material, and it has the original ceiling still. David, can you pull up a picture of that ceiling? It's so cool to see. You can buy like I don't want to say like fake Pecky cypress, but they have these modern materials that are supposed to look like the real thing. But this building is so cool because it still contains those materials, right?
It
Yeah.
From
does. Yeah.
100 years ago. That's kind of dark. It's hard to see. But it's this stained Pecky cypress. You can see the
Mhm.
grooves in there. It's absolutely gorgeous. And is this marble original too? Is it terracotta? Not
So,
terracotta.
it was no, that was part of a redesign that predates our ownership that happened, and the designer that did it was a close friend of ours who we introduced to the previous owners. They are our friends, the previous owners, and so he did a phenomenal job. He's late Tommy Lamb, for those of you that know him, don't know him, but just a real um, genius who's no longer with us, unfortunately. But
Yeah,
did
that's
a
a good
great job.
picture to see
Yeah,
that ceiling.
it was
Yeah.
it was originally terrazzo floors.
So the terrazzo is probably underneath.
Correct. Yeah.
Would you think about maybe pulling up the marble and polishing that old terrazzo and bringing that back?
It's a good question. It's all
Yeah.
about cost, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's well done for what it is,
sure.
and it blends with the era of that building and the style.
Yeah, there's a lot of things at play, especially when you're talking about a historic property like this. And then side note, this isn't on any official list. This isn't a
Correct.
protected, can I say this is
It's
not a
not.
protected property?
It's not.
Which is kind of an amazing thing for a property that has this kind of architecture that's 100 years old. Like, this city's lost so many buildings like this. It's kind of crazy it's not on a protected list.
Yeah.
But you
It's
like
not.
with these old buildings over the decades, right? Some of them get so screwed up, right? Like, in the 1940s after the war, there was renovations done, and then in the 70s and through the mid-century, they get all screwed up, and a lot of
Hmm.
historic properties just don't look right. It's interesting. This one, for whatever reason, has sort of stayed consistent over the last 100 years. Um,
Yeah,
it,
it's had a series of, very good owners, I think, over the years, that always, I think, always appreciated the Mediterranean revival style, architecture
mhm.
that it is. And so everybody is, really embraced that. And that's why it's kind of maintained the where it's at. And there's definitely some stuff that wasn't maintained that we
Sure.
uncovered, but
Yeah.
the bones are very strong.
It's amazing. It's still in the the way it looks is still preserved. And so when you end up acquiring the building, what's your initial reaction? I mean, was the initial idea to see what could be done with the property, what it would take to fully restore it? What was your thought initially when you
Yeah, I
acquired
mean,
it?
look, the very initial reason why we bought it is because, Lindsay and I moved to Davis Island in 2012, bought our first house there, before we were even married. And we had this, exposure to the building, and we were in a place where wanted to preserve some equity that I had, and no better place than investing it in your own community, right?
Right.
And this was, and Davis Island is a an area that, I thought even during a downturn, just from my background going through, the GFC, and that it would hold its value for the most part if there was a downturn. And so that was really the main inspiration of wanting to buy it. And ultimately we're not going anywhere. My business is here. We're raising three kids on the island, and it's home.
Yeah.
So we wanted to invest back into our community.
And you said early on you guys did research, right? Like you met with the History Center and started to dig deeper, right? I
Hmm.
think most people know the property, but I think the history behind it is really interesting. So you said you met with Rodney Kite Powell.
Yeah,
How did that all transpire?
We've met with him a few times, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Um,
When it started with, you met with him recently, but it
yeah.
started with, we hosted. So there was the historic homes in, when was that, March of 24, I guess, where the last stop of the historic homes tour for Davis Island was the Mirasol. And we had Rodney come out and kind of speak, on behalf of, the history of Davis Island, but also the Mirasol. And then most recently we met with him. Um, you want to tell him about your.
We met with him at the Mirasol, and that's when he told me about the 4 planned hotels and just explained to me how the Mirasol was always designed to be the anchor
Mm,
of the island,
mm.
right? I mean, right down to the huge sign that used to be on the back facing the water, literally to draw people to Davis Island.
This is so cool. So you guys hosted
This
a
is
presentation where Rodney Cat Powell came in from the History Center and told
That's
some
right.
some residents about the property and all that sort of stuff. Interesting. And were people surprised at some of the facts? I mean, I don't think a lot of people know that there was 4 planned hotels. Only one was built, the Mirasol. What was the feedback? Were people like, "Wow, this is interesting"?
I mean, I think that the feedback is always very similar. When people walk in, they can't believe what they're walking into, and then when they learn about it and what it was, they start to see it themselves, right? So this was actually part of the Davis Island Centennial Celebration, which was, hosted and curated by everybody involved in preservation, right?
Mm.
So a lot of the people in this picture were ticketed people that they weren't just people that walked in off the street. These are people who bought tickets in advance and wanted so badly to come into the building and also just to Davis Island and learn and be involved in the history.
And so what did Rodney say? I mean, it was built as a hotel, right? It was the only hotel that got built on the island. And what is the reason for that? Was probably because of the crash of the
Yeah.
1920s,
That
right?
changed everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that changed everything.
Yeah.
And how long did it operate as a hotel for before it was converted to today, right? It's apartments today.
It was converted to apartments in the 60s, 1962.
Did it operate as a hotel from the 20s until then?
Our understanding is that it was operated as a hotel for a long period of time when it actually started transitioning through like the recession and all that. I'm not exactly sure of the facts, but it was officially converted to apartments in the 60s.
Go back to that picture, David, of very early on. There was like a bunch of cars. You could see sand. Davis Islands is man-made, right? So all of the material that was used to build up
Hmm.
this property was just dredged from the bay. It's all sand. It's really fascinating. Yeah, that picture is so cool. Look at the advertisements they had, right? It's like you can imagine back in the 1920s, you've got these three islands that are built in the bay. Then you have to have a sales center, right? I think DP Davis had a sales center downtown, and then he had another office on Davis Islands where he uses these buses to probably showcase like this lot's available. This is what we're going to build here. Like
Right.
imagine back in the
Very
1920s.
different.
Yeah, very different. That's for sure. And so this hotel opens, right? You've bought what has been converted to an apartment building. And where did the idea transpire to kind of renovate it, restore it, and turn it back into a hotel as it was originally built?
So we when we purchased it, obviously it was an investment, like I had said, and we definitely felt like there was a higher and better use at some point, but financially the property made sense at the time with what it was, where it was, and the 59 units that are there. And In 2023, we had the idea of doing something more with the parking lots, and so we hosted a community meeting in December of 2023 to say, hey, we're thinking of converting this back to a its original purpose, which is a hotel. And the reason why is because I mean there's a variety of reasons, but one, there's I think a real need for it. We And Lindsay can speak to the operations today, but there is a lot of people that come from TGH, and really just from downtown and the surrounding businesses that are looking for a place to stay and they need a short-term rental. So we have some short-term rentals there already, and they stay very, very full. And then the the building itself it was built as a hotel,
Hmm.
and there's no hotel on Davis Island, and there is a real need for something like that there. And so, in order for us to really preserve it, we need to, you know, add additional entitlements in
Mm.
order to get it to make sense financially, but most importantly, to preserve it back to, the building that it was in 1925, and for the next 100 years.
And so we you showed me the building and we went in the subfloor area and you showed me some of the electrical systems that had to be
Hmm.
rebuilt and you've told me the whole story with the elevator situation. Those storms, I mean, I don't think any of us, well, certainly not in our lifetime, but I've even asked my grandfather, like those storms last year in October, I was like, have you seen the water level get that high in your lifetime? He's 92 and he said no.
Right.
So that, those storms last year were just so unprecedented and I think shocking for the whole community. But how did it affect this 100-year-old building?
So our knowledge of the history is that the building has a basement, right?
Yeah.
So 100 years ago when they built it, they weren't thinking of the weather events that we have today, and so the flooding had the basement had flooded in the past, but like a couple feet of water, and it was pumped out. This went all the way up to the ceiling, so it affected all of our mechanical systems. It blew out windows that from the pressure of the water. It came so high that not only did it flood the basement all the way to the ceiling, but 12 plus inches of water were in our grand lobby as well. And really, I mean, salt water doesn't mix well
No.
with finished property, as
With
we all know.
anything, right?
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And so it was interesting when we talked about the electrical system. So you go to the basement, right? The electrical system for the whole building, probably including the elevator, right? It's all
Mm-hmm.
right there in that space. And it looks expensive. And
Mm-hmm.
so you weren't able by code or for whatever reason, maybe you could explain it, you had to rebuild it as it sits, which provides no resiliency for the property, meaning we could have another storm this year, right? That unfortunately floods it again. And it's economically, I
Right.
mean, can you share how much it costs just to rebuild in the same place that electrical system?
I mean, just the electrical system alone was what? It was like a
Roughly
few.
$215,000.
So you have to spend $215,000 to rebuild an electrical system in a basement in Florida on an island that's built as low as it is. I mean, if
Correct.
they were going to redo Davis Islands today, like if someone had the idea, like, hey, we're going to dredge and build an island in the middle of the bay, you'd build it 6 or 8 or 10
Yeah.
feet higher than they
Right.
did,
Of
right?
course.
But it is what it is. So you've actually had to spend that kind of money and put back into place an electrical system
Right. Well, and that's just replacing it
Where it is.
exactly as is, where
exactly as
is,
is, where
right?
it is.
Bringing it up, above the grade and, above the floodplain would have cost significantly more money.
And you were not able to do that.
We
So
were not able to do that.
more than cost, at that moment, it was also time. We
Mm-hmm.
asked the question. We said, since we have to do this, can we bring it up? Because the elevators were a modernization project and their three-phase system was higher. We said, can we put it all up there? They said, sure. If you want to get an engineer and present your plans, and you're talking post 2 hurricanes in Tampa. So that would take months and months and months. And we would have lost the building in that time, right?
Right.
I mean, it was 215,000-ish to do the electric, but it was 250,000 to keep and preserve, the ceiling that we talk about, to bring generators to mitigate the moisture, to not have any temperature control, just to maintain it during that time when we're trying to get through the repairs.
Meanwhile, what about the people living in the
Right.
apartment?
Well,
There's,
that doesn't even include the economic loss of,
yeah,
if you think of, you have a 7-story building. If you think of, you have a 7-story building and the first and second floors will go up a couple flights of stairs, but third to seventh floor, those people are not climbing, up that many flights of stairs every day, uh, morning and night, right? So that forced a lot of people out, a lot. Our occupancy was, we were always in the high 90s percentage because it's obviously a very highly sought after building, to live and place to live. And we ended up, dropping down to, I think, was like 40%,
yeah. I mean, the long
45%
and short of it
occupancy.
is, yeah, we couldn't get electric back to, we were able to kind of phase in certain units because we were able to bypass some things for some
Mm.
units. But the reality is that we were 21 units we were unable to bring electricity to for almost 3 months, and also the entire common space of our building. So we had no office, no phones, no internet, no elevators, no street lights, no light in the stairwells. So not only did people have to vacate, but they literally just gave us their keys and said, we'll come back for our stuff when we can. And we said, of course, absolutely.
And at the end of it, after you've spent the money and sort of rebuilt what was out of, sounds like you had to do it that way. I
Yeah.
mean, there really was
There's no choice.
there was no choice.
Right.
What I'm concerned with is here we have this incredible historic building. I mean, the architecture is unbelievable. It's so unique for our area. Thank God it's still standing. But then it's like after that project, we're not left with anything more resilient.
That's correct.
And that's the biggest challenge. Yeah. Because the resiliency, in my opinion, is Davis Island. It was really a wake up call last year, right?
Mhm.
When all the storms hit. And you're seeing all the resiliency starting to take place now because there are a lot of people that had to rebuild their homes. And there's, the whole island is dotted with construction.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it, right?
Yeah.
There's a big need to really, improve the improvements and the buildings and the houses on Davis Island for the next 100 years. Because I mean, maybe it was the 100-year storm, but we're not banking on that at this point. And with the Mirasol, you can't, you can't do much more with it unless you ended up knocking it down, which we obviously don't want to do.
Of
No.
course not. But it's also like, man, God forbid another storm was to occur. How many more could it take? I mean, these systems are very sensitive, and even these materials are very sensitive,
Hmm.
right? It's like the salt water, like you mentioned earlier, it gets in the stucco, it affects those layers of concrete and iron and steel that are however it's constructed, right?
Right.
Like clearly salt water does not mix. So as a part of this new idea, right, to convert it back into a hotel, as a part of that comes with a resiliency project,
Hmm.
essentially a
Yeah.
preservation project.
Right.
So let's talk about that. Like,
Yeah.
if you do convert it back to a hotel, if you're able to accomplish that, what are you bringing to the table as far as resiliency for the historical building?
Yeah. And I would like to step back for a second and just mention that, we talked a lot about Helene.
Yeah,
And I think it's important to note that 2 weeks later, Milton came, right?
yeah,
So we pumped out all the water out of the basement and the lobby, the grand lobby. And then 2 weeks later, we're having to do the same thing. Not as much water, but the grounds were so saturated that there was flooding in the basement a second time. So not more than 2 weeks later, after everything was dried out, we were doing it a second time. But even more importantly, on to note on the Mirasol, the there was so much other stuff that was affected when you have more of a windstorm, which was Milton instead of the flooding,
Yeah.
right? So the elevator shaft, for example, the mechanical door starting from the top ripped off, and water poured down the elevator shaft, and that caused a lot of damage. You had windows blow out. You had the facade where I mean we were just able to start replacing portions of the roof that got ripped off. Just in the last
wow,
couple weeks,
Yeah.
we had that done. So there's so much other stuff, and then there's all the cosmetic stuff, right? Awnings,
sure,
landscaping, and all this stuff costs money.
yeah,
So there's a significant impact if you have, whether it's a flooding event or a major storm. The property really needs a massive infiltration of new capital to really bring it up, to give it that resiliency for the next 100 years.
and that would include, hurricane windows, for
Correct.
example. Like, explain what that would include, right, to build
Yeah.
a more resilient property.
Yeah. So I think, we did the stuff that we knew of when we took over, right? So like the tower, the main tower, needed a new roof. We were very well aware of that. We planned for that capital wise. We replaced that within a few months of ownership. Um, the the docks, which was another, a little bit of a challenge because, but those also had to be replaced, which we did. A little challenging getting there, but we got there, and what we would account for, what we would need to do in order to really make it resilient is obviously the exterior facade. The we have thermal mapping that was done right after the storms that we had to do for insurance purposes,
Mm,
and you can see, and it's on our website. You can see the entire building from top to bottom is just saturated in water, because you have a concrete material that's been there for 100 years. And while the bones are so strong, it does become porous over
wow.
time. And so the facade of the entire building really needs to be reinforced. Okay. So you have facade, you have windows, you have the two additional roofs. And then all the interior stuff. I mean, you have original mechanicals. We talked about electric, HVACs. We got a lot of window units there. You have original plumbing. When we took over the property, the plumbing, which we didn't, know until we owned it for a little while, and residents started to complain that there was backups everywhere.
Mm,
We got some very old pipes there,
yeah.
and we did, with the capital that we had set aside, that we put aside for it when we, that when we purchased the asset, we were able to replace some of that. But the long term is that the whole property
Yeah.
needs plumbing, electrical,
And
HVAC, all that stuff.
sorry, just to add to that, this is a building that doesn't have a sprinkler system. This is a building that nothing is ADA compliant. I mean, there's not even it needs everything.
They weren't thinking of ADA in
No, they
1926,
weren't.
right?
They were like, you're
You know,
fine.
yeah, you're
Right.
fine.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we're really talking about beyond, converting it back into its original purpose as a hotel is a complete overhaul. So this thing is going to last another 100 years because it's
That's
like
the goal.
you can't like with these historical properties, you can't limp these things along. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. I mean, the hurricane, the wave action, Florida. I mean, this was like, by the way, the driest summer I
Right.
can remember,
Right.
like super, super dry,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
no storms. That's an anomaly.
Correct.
Florida, we're all used to those afternoon showers that flood South Tampa, flood our area. You can't piecemeal property like this. You can't limp this thing along. It'll degrade. It'll degrade the concrete, the porous concrete you talked about. Eventually, it will erode. So what you're talking about is a resiliency project. I mean, you described stucco. Are you suggesting you would literally like redo the entire facade of this building?
We would need to,
Yeah.
we would need to get some, professional advice and
Sure.
engineering plans. But yeah, I mean, there's a reinforcement that needs to happen there.
And then in general, you're talking about millions of dollars as a part of this project to preserve this
Absolutely.
property. And then is it possible? Does it even make sense economically, financially? Would a bank even give you a loan? And Frank, this question's for you because this is your kind of world,
Yeah,
right? It's
right.
like, could you even get a loan? Could you even make the finances work and kind of keep it as I think you said 59 unit apartment, but
Mhm.
then spend millions of dollars on the windows and this and et cetera?
Yeah.
Is that possible?
It's possible. It's very, very tight though. Like financially, it's the project would be very tight to make work.
Yeah.
And so, but the current income of the property, I mean, there's no shot that you can really preserve it properly to withstand the next 100 years.
So in some way, you've done whatever you could do to fix what's necessary, essentially Band-Aid this beautiful building
Mm-hmm.
and move forward with Hotel Mirasol. Look at this rendering here. David, go back to that old photo, by the way, the original you had pulled up. It's such a pretty property. That original photo where you can see the sign in the back and all that. But yeah, so as a part of the plan is this huge resiliency project to convert it to a hotel so it can make economical sense, right?
Right.
I think it's important to recognize just where we are in the world in 2025. These historical properties, any property in general, is extremely expensive to purchase.
Yeah.
Of course, on Davis Island's on the water. We've seen so many homes, so many commercial properties. Tampa used to have hundreds of cigar factories. I think we have
Mhm.
26 today. It costs a fortune to purchase. It's a fortune for construction, insurance, the liability, the risk associated with that. To allow you guys to change the use and for this to make economical sense is not just an economical question. It's a preservation question too.
Right.
Enabling a hotel preserves this property through everything we just described. So let's talk about that plan, right? From what you described, Frank, you started out with the community. Like the first meeting you held was
Mhm.
2 years ago,
Yeah.
and you were saying before we got hooked up here that you started with that because you wanted to hear the feedback initially. Here's what we've purchased. Here's our thoughts. What does the neighborhood think?
Right. Yeah. So that was December of 2023. So yeah, we're coming up on 2 years now. And, we really listened to the community, and the majority of the people that came out were those who live in close proximity, right? Within probably a 400 foot radius of the property. And they were not happy.
Yeah.
In all candor, they were not happy. And so we really listened, and we really took in that feedback as much as we possibly could. And we really did take a step back and say, okay, like this is, maybe we need to figure out what makes sense for not only for us, but for the community. Because
Yeah.
ultimately, we are part of that community, right? We don't live right beside the building, but we live on Davis Island. And we wanted to make sure that it's properly done for the community. And so we went through a number of plans and renditions, and in that time frame, and over the last, call it like year and a half now, we've had, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of conversations and meetings and coffees, just understanding what the community wants on top of the um, the
Open
the
houses?
open house. Thank you. The open houses that we're inviting people to and getting all the feedback. So we've changed our original plan from 2023 probably about 3 or 4 times now,
Wow.
Yeah.
to the benefit of really the neighbors.
Yeah.
And we really listened to them, and I think that that's definitely impacted the overall economics, because we've had to change quite a bit. That's reduced the amount of square footage that we would essentially have to add in order to make it economically possible. But we understand that that's very important, and it's very
Yes.
important to us too, because it is our community as well.
Absolutely. Can you pull up, David? And let's talk about those changes, right? So you've spent over a year and a half essentially working with the neighborhood and trying to be as accommodating as possible while
Hmm.
still recognizing the entire conversation we just talked about, which is ultimately the preservation of the
Yes.
building, right? And so it's like, what will be acceptable for this entire community and what is everyone comfortable with? And at the same time, move forward and preserve the property. And so let's talk about those changes. I think initially you shared you've actually switched this whole thing around a few times.
Yeah, we
So
have.
so let's talk about the kind of initial, the feedback, and
Sure.
then where you are now.
Sure. Yeah, and we sent you the plans of the original, but basically what we have here is the the main buildings, which are right there. We originally had it planned where we had condos on the south parking lot, and the hotel that kind of wrapped the front of Davis Island, or the original building, which was a hotel, converted back to a hotel, and the north wing removed with a long sort of building, 4-story building that would be additional hotel rooms, and that was part of the feedback that we got. Adelia is very much a residential street, and the feedback that we got was, this is a residential street. We're going to have a hotel, right on our street.
Right.
Not what we want. So me and Lindsay and our whole team that we've put together to do this project, came up with the idea of, how about we flip it, and we take the condos that are supposed to be on the south lot and move them to the residential lot, which is Adelia, and have the hotel be on Davis Boulevard. So all the hotel, restaurant, everything is on Davis Boulevard versus some of it on Adelia. So now Adelia becomes all residential for sale condos.
As it is now. As
Well,
it
right
is
now
now,
it's
which is homes and right.
correct. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, right now it's parking lot, but yeah.
Well, no, I just mean the street itself,
street
right?
in
The
general.
street
Yeah,
itself.
right.
And
Well, and
so,
there's the original building, which we ended up preserving as well. So we had taken down about half of that north building, the original north building there on Adelia.
mhm,
The original plan was to take half of that down to build the additional hotel. And frankly, that was a concession, a pretty significant concession that we made, because that building is going to be costly, right? It's going to be costly to, yeah. So you see here the before and after.
yeah, let's see. So here's the old plan and the
The
current
bottom.
plan, how you've shifted here. And actually, as a part of the current plan, it looks like you've kept more of the existing building than in the old plan, right?
Yes.
Right.
So explain this, Frank. So it looks a lot lower too. It looks like you've reduced the height of that building
Correct.
on that residential street.
Correct. Yeah. So the bottom is the old plan, says it right there. So you can see that the original building had, which is on the top, which we're now preserving, but we originally had it taken down, half of it taken down, and have that whole wing be all hotel rooms.
Mm.
Okay, and it was also 4 stories, as you can see. So it was taller than the existing building that was there. When we flipped it, we not only flipped it with the residential being on Adalia, which is the top portion, but we did two other things. We're preserving the rest of that building, which, frankly, is a functionally obsolete building. It has another basement. It's going to be more costly for us to preserve that building. But that was a big part of the feedback that we got, was that we were taking down a portion, even though it was a small portion. We didn't think it was a big deal to take down that small portion of the historic building, but that was something that wasn't well received. So we figured out a way to kind of keep that in there, and then just add the additional building, just be residential for sale condos. So not only did we preserve the building, but we also added the additional building. We lowered it from 4 stories to 3 stories. We actually lowered the ceiling height, or the top of the roof, to by 5 feet below the existing building, so that there is a nice step into the community. Because right behind this building is obviously residential single family homes. So it goes from commercial to kind of, a little bit more dense residential, to single family home or low density residential. So it's a good segue or step down into the neighborhood. And then the only other thing I'll mention is that the hotel in the original plan was that there was there was 2 egresses on the bottom. You can see there on the far left and on the far right. And we changed that to have only 1 egress, which is what is currently there.
Do you have a top down, David?
That was more feedback that we got from residential, from some of the residences in the nearby area.
So there we go.
So there you go. So you can see that driveway that goes into, that's where, on the north side, that's where that's how you get in and out of the parking lot right now. So that doesn't change. You just have a building on top of it now.
I think
and it's
that's a
all
very
residential.
important distinction, right? So there's actually, where that curb cut is now is going to be in the same place with this new updated plan.
That's
Correct.
correct.
And you've eliminated the secondary egress more towards those
Right.
homes. That's going to be
Yeah.
preserved and
That's
pushed
right.
up to
Yep.
Davis Boulevard.
And then, of course, visitor and parking, right? Parking is a big hot button. So that's all able still to be housed on that lot. So that won't spill over onto Adelia either. Also, as it exists today, it's probably not like a glamorous detail, but that's where the property's compactor, like the garbage receptacle is.
Dumpsters.
So dumpster. I was trying to avoid that word. But so that's where the trucks go to pick up. So we were able to relocate that to Davis Boulevard as well. So that would actually be an improvement
Right.
to as it is right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so, David, pull up some of those old photos with the new ones and let's kind of talk about those, because a lot of what this is a shift back to the original, what the original property was, which is a hotel. You've got this cool shot of, maybe it's from like the 1930s or even earlier than that.
It says
Does it
1938 in the corner.
Is that what that is?
It's either 28 or 38.
Well, I think it says 186.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
might
might be
not
like
be
an
a date.
identification.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a photo, David, of you can see these people enjoying breakfast of some sort, right, in the old dining area,
Yeah.
and then the rendering. Is
So
it this one?
So this is that picture specifically. We believe that this is actually on the rooftop. So
Oh, interesting.
the rooftop, which is now a 3-bedroom, 3,500 square foot sort of penthouse unit, was the original ballroom for the hotel. And so we believe that this is what that was, what this picture was, based on some of the information that we do have.
The side by side, David. We were
The-
pulling it up earlier. You got it. Yeah, you're pulling it up.
Yeah, the one with the tables is where the restaurant was, which let's see. Yeah, this
Yeah.
one here. Yeah, so this is definitely on the ground floor. Right now, this the restaurant where it used to be was enclosed and broken up and divided up into 2 apartments. So there's 2 apartments now in this space. But you can see here that there was a restaurant here. It overlooked, the water and had the sunset views and everything. And this here, the picture on the right is really the inspiration of what we would be restoring it to. So while it's an apartment today, we would want it to be put it back to
Yeah.
where the restaurant was
Yeah.
and look very similar. And, you know, you obviously you're going to modernize, you're going to add windows. Back then they didn't have windows. So,
Yeah.
we'd add windows today with today's climate and weather conditions, but, that would be the idea. And this is such a great, um, place that really Davis Islands doesn't have, right? We don't have that kind of place where people can gather, go grab a drink, grab a meal, grab brunch on
Right.
on a Sunday morning. And that's what it was, right? That's what it originally was, and opening it back up to the community, I think, is a big amenity that we're bringing back to the community too.
And this is pretty intimate. I mean, so in the photo from probably the 1920s, you have 6 tables. In the new vision, this new rendering, this inspiration, you also have 6 tables.
Yeah,
So when you say restaurant, people can think of it as an intimate experience. It's not like, you know, Ocean Prime or anything like that.
right. Oh,
God, no.
absolutely. There's no room for it, right?
Right.
I mean, there's, you know, it would probably be bigger than the 6 tables because behind, like to the right of this picture, there's more space. You know, if you were to, you know, move the camera over, so maybe it becomes more than 6 tables.
Sure.
But yeah, it's not. I mean, we're talking about 2,500 square feet.
2,500 square feet.
2,500 square foot is what the current 2 apartments that are there now. If you combine those, it's about 2,500 square feet. So
And so it's like, you know, people coming for brunch, guests of the hotel that come downstairs, things of that nature.
Yeah, I think there's dining on Davis Island. There's definitely casual dining and places to gather, but there's no white tablecloth, waterfront, make a reservation, upscale
Which is kind of
dining.
shocking when you think about it.
Well,
it really
because
is.
because
Yeah.
that's what it was supposed to be.
That's what it was supposed to be.
So, and I feel like you live on Davis Island, then you know, kind of like if you build it, they will come. I don't think it needs to be huge or big box because it's meant to service Davis Island, and that's what it will, right? We need this amenity, and I think people want it.
It's not the big, you know, 12 top reservation in a private room and
No.
it's more of an intimate experience. Yeah, it's amazing that that doesn't exist now. I think all of us who have seen the transition in Tampa are kind of shocked. You know, we've come a long way, but we still don't have certain amenities that are so in demand and so needed. And this is certainly a part of that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
Dave,
especially on Davis Island.
especially
Yeah.
on Davis Island,
Yeah.
right? You know, given the demand to live there, the different, you know, type of people that have moved in that are willing to pay amazing amounts of money for waterfront property to live on this. And there's a reason why, because it's awesome. I mean, you're connected right there to downtown over the bridge. The
Yeah.
location's killer. I think another reason why Davis Islands is popular is the mix of use. It's not a bedroom community. You have your own little downtown. You have your own little
Right.
village,
And we
right?
all feel like it's ours,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah.
know?
The golf cart lifestyle, right? That's
Exactly.
the first. When my wife and I rented a house, literally the first thing I did was like, we got to get a golf cart. We live on Davis Island. We got to be a part of the club,
Immediately.
you know?
Immediately.
And it's so what's cool about Davis Islands too is like that little village, man. My wife was pregnant when we moved there. And my dad grew up on Davis Islands. My grandfather told me that he bought his first house on Davis Islands on the water. I forgot the street. It was on the water on the canal for $25,000.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
So that I'm like, why didn't you hold on to that? Dad? What the hell? But you know, when we moved there, when my wife was pregnant, it was so encouraging to be a part of that community. Like you see the amount of kids that live on Davis Islands is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Every house has a basketball hoop.
Yeah.
You go to the village, everyone's
Yeah.
walking around and the kids hop in the golf cart and you know, you feel relatively safe there because you're on this island community. You know, it's no wonder why the demand for Davis Islands has only exploded over the past since you guys moved
Right.
there, really. I mean,
Yeah.
so I think this would be amazingly popular. I think a lot of people would be excited to know
Yeah.
that they have a place where they can go get a little bit higher level of service.
I'm excited.
Sure, I'm excited too.
I don't want to go off the island for that.
So David, that list of changes, I just want to make sure that we talk about those changes because before we hopped on the show, you've talked about how you've integrated the feedback into this plan. I mean, you're really, from what it sounds like, you're kind of taking the community with you on this journey. This isn't like you've bought this property and here's what we're going to do. No, I mean, for years now, literally, you've had these conversations and shifted this plan to
Yes,
align with what the community, what the neighborhood, wants to see.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's no, that's absolutely right. And we like I said earlier, we this is also our community,
Yeah,
so we want to embrace this and make it, something truly special. We don't plan to leave anytime soon, or if at all. And we're raising our kids there too. So
As Tampa grows, I think we're in this sort of growing pain phase where, especially in South Tampa, like I was I was born on Davis Island, technically at Tampa General, right? It's like I've been in this South Tampa community practically my whole life, and as we grow, you've got the increase in traffic, you've got these different concepts coming to this area, right? But the same level of infrastructure is there, and so I think now more than ever, all of the neighborhoods are so much more conscious in regards to growth. And you can tell that neighborhoods want to be a part of the process, a part of the conversation. They want to give a lot more feedback than ever before. And so the feedback in these changes you've made, I think, are critical to this entire process. But it's not just about the Mirasol. I think any project in the city has to kind of bring the community along with it.
absolutely. And that was, we're part of the community. We weren't coming into Davis Island saying, okay, like we got to learn. It
Yes.
was like we bought this property because we had already fallen in love with Davis Island, right?
Hmm.
And and so our intention was always like, okay, how do we do this? We know we have good backgrounds. We know we're somewhat savvy in some things, obviously more him than I, but like we also knew that we wouldn't want to do anything or create anything that wouldn't feel good for the community. It's Davis Island that we're trying to elevate, that we're
Yes.
trying to preserve, and that building I think is very much part of it.
we're not the Miami developer,
Yeah.
New York developer that's trying to come in and do
No,
something,
this is like my
big.
only
And
nice
this
outfit.
is
I'm
our
just in
this is
leggings with my kids.
this is this is our neighborhood
And
Yeah.
and what we want to
a passion
and a
project. I
pass. Yeah,
mean,
very much so.
very much so. And so did we hit these points? I just want to be sure that, well, I think you didn't mention square footage has been reduced by almost 30,000 square feet, 37% reduction
Yeah.
in the new development proposed. You've got 8 different points there. And
Yeah,
if
we did.
people,
We actually stopped like halfway, I think. Now that I'm looking at it, because we talked about the demolition of the north wing, and removing the hotel use on the north wing and making it for sale, 12 units. Reducing the height, right, maximum height of 40 feet, versus the prior plan being 50. Yeah, decreasing the setbacks, and making them 15 feet, versus the original plan being 7 feet setbacks along Adelia. So that's kind of where we stopped. And I think what one of the main things, the curb cut, we talked about the curb cut on Adelia. One of the main things that where we stopped talking about that is that that preservation, or saving that portion of the wing on Adelia is a big part of what's reduced our
Yeah.
square footage, and being able to build more than what's already there. On the south side, on the Davis Island, on Davis Boulevard side, that parking lot is kind of a unique shape, so it makes it a little challenging to do hotel rooms as well. And so for that reason, we had to kind of carve that up a little bit more, and we ended up losing some square footage there. But overall, from the original plan to our sort of our final proposed plan, we're reducing it by 37%.
and the units on the north side, how many will there be as proposed here?
So roughly 12. And that will be give or take depending on what size. I mean, you only have so many square feet to work with. So
Sure.
do we build, that's a plan that hasn't been 100% finalized yet, right? Do you build smaller apartments or condos and sell smaller apartment condos, or do you build them, bigger, and,
Yeah.
and you just have less?
Got it. So even with 12, you're still not talking about a significant number
No.
on that residential street there.
And that went down, right? Because
It
when
was originally 16.
yeah, But
Oh, wow.
because we
Okay.
switched it into that space and also preserve the building and just comment on the building that was like
Sure.
going to be partially demolished, it's 6 units and it's an elevator that's shut down. It's not, you
Decommissioned.
cannot use it. It's completely sealed and decommissioned and has been. We shut it down because it was absolutely in disrepair when we purchased the building, and we knew that. But underneath that um, is another basement that's dangerous with open wires. I mean, it's the intention was not to like get rid of what's there. The intention was just to kind of get rid of what was obsolete and dangerous. But we'll do the work to keep it.
Is that part of the building in the worst shape, that north wing? Because you mentioned the elevator, the basement, the electrical down there. Would you say that that part of the building is in need of the most renovation and
I
repair?
wouldn't say any more so than
Yeah.
the rest of the building.
Really? Wow.
It's just that
It's
we've
just
moved away from it, right? Like we stopped using that area, you
Mm,
know?
got it. So all the apartments use the other elevator in that lobby area to access that, or do they go up and
you
down the
can't.
You
stairs?
can't. So that
It doesn't.
wing,
Wow.
you
It doesn't
only,
connect.
yeah.
So was that an addition at some point? Because it's interesting that
It
it
was.
doesn't
It
connect.
was. It's. We've researched the heck out of this, and
Yeah.
there's some photos that lend itself to make us believe that it was an addition,
Mm,
but there's I think Rodney was the one that
Yeah.
said that it was always part of the plan. So maybe my guess is that maybe it was built like a few years later, but it
sure.
wasn't. It wasn't like decades later.
And at some point sealed off from the rest of
Yes.
from the main building.
Yes. So
I'm,
maybe it was,
I'm sure the elevator was an ad because it's like
Sure.
on the
yeah.
outside, right by the pool. It's a very awkward.
Yeah.
Doesn't
The
look well
the
well
history
designed.
part of this is so fascinating, like uncovering, the way it was and how, is your inspiration for the hotel to turn back the clock and sort of make the vibe and the feel of that kind of Mediterranean revival, 1920s Davis Islands, like how much of it would feel new and how much of it would feel like, wow, this is a cool historic hotel.
The original building, we'd want to preserve it to make it feel like the original historic hotel, but just modernizing, like we keep on saying, like the electrical systems,
Windows,
windows,
Yes.
yes.
especially, stuff like that. But it was originally, and you read about the history, and we've, obviously talked to Rodney quite a bit. And I mean, the who's who that came to Tampa would congregate there. There was meetings there. There was women's events. There was diplomats and aviators and military personnel from all over the world that would come there because of McDill, and they would stay there. That was like it was really truly a place where people congregated,
Mm,
and that was shut off to the whole city
yeah.
in the 60s when it was converted to apartments, right? So our vision is to bring it back to that,
Yeah.
right? Bring it back to that where it's like, oh, we should go stay there if there's availability. We should meet there, even if it is a small meeting or a coffee or a lunch meeting or dinner meeting, breakfast meeting, etc. That is the history of not only Davis Island but a big part of Tampa's history.
100%. And it seems like a lot more travelers now want that experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you can choose to stay between like this historic 100-year-old hotel that architecturally looks the exact same as it did versus like, I mean, I don't want to poop on like a Marriott or whatever, but like, just your generic out by the airport, out by the highway. It seems like there's this shift into the boutique
Yes.
nature of hospitality.
Yeah, especially the leisure travelers. I mean, you'll still see some business travelers, and I suspect that some, especially coming for business, that are coming to like TGH, for example, would want to stay there just because of proximity and it's a unique experience. But most definitely on leisure travel, people want an experience, and this is going to be truly an experience.
And so you already
The
have
golf cart community, maybe having golf carts there, bikes there, where you can, take a bike and bike down Bayshore as an example, or even, over to downtown, but still be removed where it's like a quiet boutique hotel.
Yeah,
And it's a different experience much different experience than like staying in downtown or staying in Water Street.
for sure.
Right. It's quieter. It's residential. It's going to be that way.
Well, I talk on the show all the time about how, all eyes are on us, right? You've got an incredible amount of corporations and big businesses and even small businesses moving here. People from all over the country, from the Northeast and the West
Yeah.
Coast are moving here.
Yes.
If they can come to a place that speaks to old Tampa and that's where they're staying and that's their experience, that's good for our city as a whole. Because if we don't have places like that for people to experience, we just become Orlando. We just become any given Florida city. And so to be for this to be the front door, right, where people, maybe some out of towners come for a Bruins game, right, versus the Lightning, they can stay here. And it's a stickier experience. They leave Tampa with
Yes,
this feeling of like, oh my gosh, we stayed in this old historic hotel, right? That part of the story is really what I'm excited about.
Yeah.
absolutely.
As we all should be, right? The whole
Yeah,
community should be excited about that.
100%.
Bringing back the history of stuff that happened at this hotel and people staying there 100 years ago,
Yeah.
and now here we are 100 years later and trying to renew that. Like that's a really exciting
W-
concept, right?
And
we see a little bit, right, of that right now. We have 8 units that operate as short-term corporates. A lot of that is driven by TGH. We have people come from all over to seek treatment and things that they can't get anywhere else. So we host them and their families. But we also have a lot of people that they live on Davis Island and their mom's coming down for a week. I have a couple that is rebuilding their house in Geneva and needs a place to stay still because they flooded out. We've been serving the community and we have a lot of people because we've been doing the corporates and we kind of grew that that component when we purchased it. I have people that come down regularly and stay in my villa and they stay for 3 months and they see their family and they snowbird and it's those people live on Davis Island. It's helpful to them and my residents, right? Because mostly the Mirasol studios and one bedrooms, they're small. So they'll be like, oh, my mom's coming to visit. She wants to stay in the neighborhood.
so you already have a component of this that has short-term stays.
That's correct.
8 units, you said.
Correct.
And so that's sort of where you're already seeing, in some way, you can almost beta test what the pool of, I guess you don't call them residents, what hotel guests would be, right? It's like, maybe someone's getting a transplant. I think Tampa has like the
Mm-hmm.
number one transplant center right across the bridge.
We get a lot of that because they'll get a phone call saying you have to be less than 8 hours away and you just have to wait. So they'll come and they'll rent for a long time. And then when they have their surgery, they have to come here to convalesce because they keep having to go back for their checkups. We get a lot of that.
And you've been running those 8 units since you've purchased the property?
So there were two when we purchased the property, but they
We
were
added
30-day
some.
minimum rentals. So they were empty. But
Sure.
so we reduced that minimum, and then at the same, it just so happened that TGH had a need. They had lost another property on Davis Island that had that format, and they moved away from it.
Mm.
So what we found was when we kind of partnered with them is we were just turning people away left and right because we only had two, um, and that didn't feel good, first of all, but also we were like, oh, there's a need here. So
Wow.
we grew it unit by unit. And then we added another one after the storms because we had somebody who lost everything that was like, I need a place to stay, but I don't have anything anymore. And I don't know how long I'll be here.
Apparently, I heard like Hotel Haya is a hot spot for hurricanes. Like people evacuate and go to Hotel Haya.
They won't have to.
They won't have to, right? Well, and the key, I mean, you can even see like those aren't really jalousie windows, but they kind of operate in the same manner where
No, they are.
They are.
they are.
You nailed it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Those aren't good
A
for
lot,
hurricanes.
a lot of
So
that. I mean, a lot. There was a when it was converted to apartments. Our understanding is that there was a pretty significant renovation that was done there then,
Because those are
and
like
those are
70s,
yeah.
60s,
60s.
60s. You see a lot of jalousie windows in the 60s. So yeah, that's
Not hurricane resistant at all. I
Well,
mean,
and that is
no.
no.
well, when you talk about like you can only know what you know, when you do due diligence on a property, you can see, okay, the windows are old, but you can't know how it's going to behave in 125 mile per hour
Right.
windstorm for the first time.
Mhm.
And that was, like I said, they described it as like death by 1,000 paper cuts because every single window, not only were we dealing with like the corroded porous exterior, but windows that literally bent out, were forced in from the wind.
Whoa.
And so it just kept coming, right?
Wow.
It was the whole building.
In these here, you can see below some of the windows, there's rust. I think these are air conditioning
Yeah.
units,
Yeah, wall units.
wall units. In the new plan, that would all be tore out, and you'd have central
Yeah.
air, I would assume.
So we have mostly, that stack in the center, that's all studio and one bedrooms. So when they were converted away from from hotel rooms to apartments, it was like, my understanding is, what can we bring in? So ductwork for central air was not possible, right, in there. But on the ends of the buildings, those are the 2-bedroom stacks, and there's central air there because they have the space. But in the majority of the building, there's just window units per room.
It was built before air conditioning.
That's correct.
That's right.
And so if this gets converted to a hotel and you do this entire project, can that be accomplished, or would you have to do new window units in certain areas?
Yeah, it's a good question. Our goal would be to do, modern
Yeah,
central
Yeah.
AC for the whole property.
sure. A lot of that probably comes down to looking into the, if you have even the space to be able to accomplish that.
Correct. Yeah.
And maybe there's a creative way to get it done that you're just not thinking of because you're not quite there yet.
Right.
Well,
Exactly.
and that's the
Well,
story of the building, right? Like
Right.
you always kind of have to
Yeah.
figure it out before you can figure it out. But that
Right.
would be the goal for sure.
So this picture that's pulled up describes that elevator shaft you
Yep.
spoke to earlier.
Oh, right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So wow, that thing,
Yeah, so
I wouldn't ride that either. So that right now is closed for the
It's
residents.
shut down. Yeah.
You cannot use it.
It's
That's
decommissioned.
yeah.
But you could see here off to the left, there's a little railing that goes down to the second basement. So there's a
Mm.
basement under the main building, which has to remain, but that one doesn't have to. And so that was the original plan, was to kind of take down this portion of this building where these units are, functionally obsolete, and there's this elevator that's been decommissioned, and there's a basement, and just bring everything up to code. So now we're salvaging this. We're going to have to make some pretty significant repairs and cosmetic repairs, and probably even remove this elevator shaft,
Mm.
Sure.
because it is a little bit of an eyesore now, and figure out what to do with the basement so that we can not, take on so much water in 2 basements if there's another Helene that happens again.
One thing I'm thinking too, like let's just say, God forbid, this building fell further into disrepair and had to be torn down, or even if you had to rebuild something like this with today's codes, you can't. Like let's recognize for a second that this only exists because it was built 100 years ago. Like if you had bought this vacant land right here with today's fire code and building code, like you wouldn't be able to
No.
accomplish the look of this. Like
The look for sure.
the look
I
for
mean,
sure.
you could rebuild it
You,
without a doubt. You can absolutely rebuild it, but you can't financially. No one. I mean, have you seen a building like that go up in the last
I
couple
that's
decades?
what I'm saying. Like every piece of it, like the
Right.
architectural elements, like the size of the windows. I mean, you even mentioned before there's like an inch discrepancy with the staircase, and so
Right.
for that reason, even the original use of the top floor, which was like a ballroom of some sort,
Yeah. It was like a
Right.
banquet hall.
like the banquet hall, like
The
that
original ballroom
wouldn't
for
be
the
allowed
hotel.
today because the fire not the fire staircase, just the staircase
Right.
is an
Staircase.
inch too small.
Right.
So it's like let's recognize that this only exists because it's 100 years old.
That's
Right.
right.
Like you couldn't build it back in the exact same manner with today's
Right.
codes.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, and to your point too, you look at what that cost is, right? The cost for new construction, we all know, is very expensive, and it's very, very challenging to make sense financially. The cost to renovate is 2-3 times more than new construction.
right.
2
And
to 3 times more.
absolutely, if you're doing the exact same amount of work, it costs so much more to do. Whether it's an adaptive reuse or you're renovating an old building, if you're doing it properly, right?
Mm.
If you're really making sure that you're, adhering to the original sort of inspiration, the original design, the detail, and you can see like this banner that goes across, and the detail
Yes.
around the windows, and these arches around the windows. I mean, those are all things that we would want to preserve, and that's where it gets very, very costly. And so that's the reason why we need to do what we're doing in order to do it right. And that's what
Yeah.
we want to do. We want to do it right so that it is preserved in the manner in which it deserves
So
to be
Okay.
preserved.
it's safe to say with the approval of this conversion back to a hotel, literally you are willing to spend the extra lots of money necessary, right, to preserve these elements, the columns and the detail. I think they call those what are they called?
I called it the
Dental
banner.
molding is
Yeah.
the right.
Right.
And I'm sure an architect could speak to all the
Right.
special terms that they use.
Of course.
Um,
But even like, like I just had a conversation with our roofer who did the main tower, and the cost to redo the barrel tile roof that you see here, that's a structural element that is the design of the building.
Right.
And the previous owner, it's actually, I think it was 2 owners ago, there's some of that barrel tile that was on the 7th floor that was removed, and it was placed with just shingles. And they likely did that because it was much more cost effective,
right.
right? So we can put some metal here, we can
Sure.
put some shingles here and make it much more cost effective, but you're kind of
You're
you're ruining the integrity and the
yes.
of the building and its
Well, you're
style.
you're disrespecting the architecture at the end of the
Correct.
day,
100%.
right? You're doing it in a more economical way, but it ruins the purpose of preserving this thing. The
Correct.
reason it should be preserved is those material elements like the barrel tile. Like in order for you to do this project, it's almost like what is the point if not to preserve this thing and use those materials and the quality. And I mean, there's going to be some custom elements to this too, right? It's not like you can go to some supplier and purchase some of these moldings. Like a lot of this is going to have to be
Customized.
customized, right?
Mhm.
With third parties that might not even be local. I mean,
And
you
that's where
Absolutely.
that cost comes in, right? That's where that 2 to 3 times cost comes in, because it's not manufactured regularly like you would normally find on
right.
any, brand new hotel or brand new apartment building, where they make them,
Yeah.
in mass production.
Curated materials
Correct.
to bring this thing back to life.
Right.
Um, if people want to if people want to support this, if they have a concern or a question or an idea, can they get in touch with you guys and share their thoughts with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a whole website set up.
Let's pull that up, David, and share that with people.
SaveTheMirasol.com.
And then you've got that document which describes some of the changes. Is that out on your website as
Yes.
well? Yeah, let's pull the website up because if people want to get in touch, I think it'd be important. So SaveTheMirasol.com. There's on the top right, you can click contact and you can fill out a form. And I'm assuming that just goes to your email directly, right? Also on the website, you have history, the next chapter, myth versus fact, which we can talk about in a second. But this is, it looks like you've had this like comprehensive website with this entire project front to back, including the history of it.
So in the next chapter, if you go there, it has all of our plans, presentations, a lot of the materials that we covered are right here.
Got it. So you can actually download the site plans.
That's
Wow.
correct.
Nice. Information packet, all the above
Hmm.
right there.
And then if that doesn't work, I'm basically always at the Mirasol. So anybody's welcome to come talk to me. I'll
And
give them a tour.
and Lindsey, explain your role. You're a full-time manager of this property.
So I have a property manager there, but I manage the operations side. That's my background. A lot of the things that you guys talk about, I can't say I know 100%, but I know properties and I know how to operate them. So I have a property manager there and a leasing manager. She actually lives there, and so does her mom. And I just run it. I help them with rents, the residents, projects that we're doing, cap items, everything that it takes to run it as it is today.
Amazing. And so we've got myth versus fact right
Yeah.
here. So we can run through a few of these and then I'll let y'all run out of here. I appreciate you being here, by the way, and explaining this whole thing in detail. Obviously, whenever something new comes about, whatever that may be, there's conversations around what's to come, what it could look like, etc. So you guys have created this page that has facts and plans and then maybe some perceptions that could be incorrect.
Right. And that's just
There's
based
a
on
lot.
all of the times we have met with our neighbors, right? Like
Yes.
these are things that are said to us and we're like, what? Wait a second. And so we wanted to just be as, first of all, transparent, but also just as clear as possible because we understand it's a lot to absorb. And I don't think anybody intentionally tries to get it wrong, but it's a lot, right? It's a
Sure.
lot of information. And so we just thought that this was a good tool for everybody.
Absolutely. And I don't know that we want to like read through every
No,
individual thing
no,
here, of
just that
course.
it's there.
But people should absolutely visit the website and check
Yeah.
it out because you do address everything. I mean, you've got, you know, anything from a traffic potential impact.
Yes.
I think you have some preservation stuff. You've got some, land use, like what the property will be used for. What else is on there, David? Scroll
The
down.
the reason why we did that is because as we started down this path, there was the rumor mill starts and
Sure.
it snowballs pretty quickly, um, and the reality is that there was so much misinformation out there that we just wanted to kind of put it out there and essentially be on the record that a lot of these ideas and these rumors are just not true.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason for this, and a lot of the stuff that we hear around town. I mean, the streets talk, right? And so
Yeah.
I think in this case, we are, and what we've heard from a number of stakeholders in the community, that we are by far and away have had the most outreach, that community outreach for a development or redevelopment or rezoning project, and more importantly, the transparency.
Yeah.
Because again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but we're not Miami developers. We're not coming in here to just trying to
Well, you live in the
we
neighborhood.
live
I
in the
think
neighborhood. I mean,
I'm,
this is not that, we're not those people. So we want to make sure that the facts are really put out there and people understand what we're trying to accomplish. And if there is any rumors, that those myths were clarified with the facts that we've put on.
and scroll down, David, because you do handle a lot here. I think if they do have concerns, a lot of them can be read about here. But additionally, they can reach out to you
Absolutely.
because you've got those forms on the website. You even address flooding,
Mm-hmm.
et cetera,
Mhm.
renovation. I mean, all of it is on here, and it looks like you go into detail. Frequently asked questions. Yeah, this is great. And so you do have more meetings planned with the community, correct? I think you mentioned
December 4th.
December,
hmm
December 4th. And is that an open house?
We call it an open house, but it's basically just dedicated hours that we're there, the team is there, that all of this is also available, that we present, go over. It's really just inf- meant to be informative and just
Hmm.
kind of further the discussion and explain. They've been very helpful. We have smaller crowds, but everybody that comes in learns something. And
Sounds
we
like you guys have learned a lot too over the last few years of
absolutely,
interacting with the neighbors and
yeah.
the feedback
I
and
mean, obviously, it's hard to get feedback when somebody doesn't like what you love,
sure.
but the core of it means that we all care very much,
That's exactly
right?
right.
So there's that center point of like taking that, moving forward. We may not always agree, but let's get it to a good place. And if we're gonna, if there's support or not, it's about what we're really doing, and also making it, it's not with intention that you don't think of everybody. That's why you hold, you know, forums where the community come in. And I think feedback is hard to hear, but it helped us tremendously.
Yeah,
I never would have known what I had known had they not said it. Right?
100%.
And we've had some very heartbreaking feedback,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
from sort of personal attacks
Oh
on
yeah.
what we've done with the building, which I think it's in the best condition that it could be for
Sure.
what we have. And to we would rather you knock it down and build condos, which is
Yeah.
just like, that's like,
Whoa.
community, literally like residents in the community that live very near to the property have actually said those statements
I,
to Lindsay and I,
I would love to
which
support you in that.
which is kind of baffling, right? How do you replace that
Well,
today? And
the
that's
answer is you
not
can't.
right.
If this
You
thing
don't.
goes down, we'll never get it back.
Well, and
Right.
I think that's the difference of a perspective of like wanting what is best for one, like when you're thinking inwardly versus what's best for the whole community, right?
Well,
Like
the city as a whole. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah, 100%, right? I think that's an important point. This isn't just Davis Islands. I think this is Tampa history,
Yes,
period.
it
Correct. Yeah.
is. I mean, yeah,
And there's also an Instagram page because you guys put out information there as well.
yes,
So save the Mirasol Tampa. You've got some history stuff. You've got obviously the information regarding your open houses, your community outreach, myth versus fact is on here.
hmm
So follow along, people. Frank and Lindsay, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you having us. And I just want to add one thing. I
Sure.
mean, what's super important about this project is that it's not about, the money. It's not about anything. It's really about the new development is what is going to ultimately save the Mirasol, right? Because
Yes.
that's what we're
Yeah,
asking for. And that's what I want people to understand is that these new developments is what that income does to allow us to preserve and save the Mirasol.
yes,
And that's what we need to get it, to have the longevity that it deserves.
Any one piece of the restoration, the windows, I mean, some of the materials used is unbelievably
Yeah.
expensive. I think if you're not, necessarily in the real estate industry, you might not know that. But even if you're a homeowner and you've had to replace hurricane windows, I got to quote my roof. My HOA requires you to do a tile roof. We talked about tile roofs
Right.
yeah,
with this barrel tile.
Very
It's a lot.
expensive.
I'll just say that it's a
yeah.
lot.
Much more expensive than the shingles that we talked about, right?
That is for
Yeah.
dang sure. And then not including windows. And you've mentioned electrical plumbing. I mean, there's a lot of this that's going to require an unbelievable amount of capital. But the capital being used is to preserve this property. And if done the right way with the right materials and the hurricane windows, et cetera, this thing's going to last literally generations. Like our
Absolutely.
grandchildren will be able to check this place out.
Right. I mean, that's like for me, the emotional part. I'm like, I want to
That's the
have
whole
like my
thing.
kid's 16th birthday dinner there, and I want to
Yes.
do Mother's Day brunch there, and like I want it to, and then I want them to do that with their kids. And we have all these very cool little things that we either still exist or that we've lost on Davis Island. And I don't want this to be one of them. Like we have little garden club. How amazing would it be to like go get married at the Duck Garden Club and then go take pictures on our water? Like it
Well, and
feels special.
It is very
and just to add,
Instagrammable.
and
Totally.
yeah, and
Clearly
just
it
to
has
add to
me.
that, it's not just us, right? It's the whole community that can
Yeah.
say, I took our, wedding pictures or engagement
Yes.
pictures or had the 16th birthday at, the Mirasol, which is like an iconic building in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's a part of the whole community's history, not just ours.
So save the Mirasol Tampa on Instagram and then savethemirasol.com.
Yep.
Beautiful. Thank you both again.
Thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you
Bye.
next week.
Thanks.